Clock will open up the Board of Selectmen's meeting for May 29th, starting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, any announcements?
Just briefly, I'd like to thank everyone who was involved with the organization and execution of the Memorial Day services and parade this week. I think it was a well-organized event. Dennis Seeley did a great job emceeing. Don Letourneau obviously plays a huge role in the whole parade. So thank you to all that was involved. It was a very nice day.
I'd
Anybody
like to
else?
thank you, Jay Cahill, for being our speaker at the parade. He did a wonderful job.
Okay, that's it. Citizens Forum, anybody? All right. There's a couple people in the audience, I think, I'm gonna try to take out a place if the board don't mind. We'll do the one-day beer and wine license. Did you come up to the?
Can you just sign in, please?
Okay. Well, everything's pretty much here, that you want 6 to 9 on the date. Does anybody have any questions for us?
No, do we have all the requirements met?
Yep, there's no concerns, all the requirements are met. The only, I would just make note that there is no consumption of beer and wine allowed outside of the store.
Okay.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the one-day beer and wine license for Refined Consignment Boutique for Thursday, June 7th, 6 to 9 p.m. There is no consumption of beer and/or wine allowed outside of the store.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Local initiative?
Yes, we'll do the local initiative next, that's. Does everybody understand what we're doing here in this,
Yes.
Jay?
Mhm.
Which one are you doing?
E,
In the back, second page. I have, here, this one. They want to refinance, it's one of
Oh.
those subsidized things, so they need board approval.
Okay, thanks.
all right. Have a motion?
I'll move that the board approve the request for, I move that the board approve the request for approval to refinance for
Second.
the,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
All right.
I'm sorry, we should put the
for 6
date.
Court, yeah, I was gonna
6
put,
Hamilton Court.
I was gonna say, yeah, let's amend it to say 6 Hamilton Court on the date. Can you tell us the date, Peter?
Yes.
On June, sorry, on May 29th, 2011.
Motion as amended. Peter? Steve?
Well, second?
Second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Only have one last thing. I want to have the, if you agree, CMRPC, have a come up with a discussion for the Raricolas.
Evening. Thank you very much. I sign in?
Please.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having time to put me on the agenda. I know that you have public hearing tonight, so I'll be as efficient with your time as I can. My name is Vera Colias. I'm one of the principal planners with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. We are the regional planning agency for the 39 towns and the city of Worcester here in southern Worcester County. I'm here to chat with you for a few minutes about a new initiative that we've taken on this calendar year called the Blackstone Valley Prioritization Project. I have flyers for the board if you don't have them in your packets, if I could.
They have them.
Oh, they have these, if folks in the audience would like to take one. The purpose of this project is to carry on the regional planning process that the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development undertook over the past 2 years in the 495 region along the I-495, 37 communities along that region. And the goal of the project, as is with this project, is to work with the various communities. We're working with the Blackstone Valley with the individual communities and understand your priorities at the community level for any areas that you've identified as priority areas for development or preservation or any infrastructure needs that you've identified, roadways, water and sewer, any kind of infrastructure like that. The goal is to create a regional plan that identifies in your region all of the areas that the communities are working on to focus on for economic development efforts or priority protection areas. And what we'd like to do is take a look at what the whole region looks like when we see where everyone's priority areas have been identified. The idea from the Economic Development Secretariat is that, as you are well aware, there are not enough funds to go around to be able to fund folks' infrastructure projects or purchase of priority open space. And so the idea is to go through a prioritization process and have communities really focus and tell us, where are these areas that you've really focused on? And by doing it that way, we know that the communities have worked on it, they have the zoning in place, the efforts are there, the initiatives are there at the local level, so that the state can direct its infrastructure dollars to those areas that already have community support, and that all of the pieces are in place to move ahead with those projects. No one's interested in telling a community where you ought to be building or where you should be preserving. That's not for anyone else to say but you at the local level. So what we're doing is going through a grassroots process, starting here at the local level, asking communities, where are your priority areas? We map them all, all on the individual communities. As you know, we're finishing up the entire Blackstone Valley through this process. And then we'll see where we have some consistency. Are there development areas that are shared amongst multiple communities? And we know of one for sure, the 4-Town project that you folks are a part of with Douglas, Northbridge, and Sutton. So we already have some multiple community projects that are already happening. So that's a great example of communities working together, looking at where you have your infrastructure in place and looking at focusing your development efforts there. So that's one example. So what we'd like to see is where on a regional level that might be happening on the protection side as well as other areas on the development side. I do have Jan Reitzma is here from the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. They're Corridor Commission. They're one of our partners on the project, as are the Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce from the private sector side. So we're trying to get all avenues of those efforts from the development and the preservation side within the valley to see what folks are working on at the community level. This is the sort of the second part of the local process. I've met with your town manager to sort of briefly go through what we think might be happening at the community level, what areas have been identified, and what I'd like to do, if you have a couple of minutes before the hearing starts, is to go through on the map what we've identified as likely candidates for those priority areas for preservation or development, and I'd like to just ground truth that here with the board and with the folks in the audience, just to make sure I have it right. Are there any gaps? Is there anything that I've missed that you folks would identify as being priorities for development or for preservation? But before I do that, are there any questions? I talk pretty fast, I'm sorry. But I know there's a hearing, so I don't want to waste time. I've been in these before, so you're very kind to take things out of order and let me come up first. So are there any questions about the process or the purpose of this? Being part of this process certainly helps at the state level for any MassWorks infrastructure grants that the community might move forward with. The state is looking to see if where its funds are going to make investments in projects, consistency with regional plans. And this is one of those regional planning efforts that would work certainly in the community's favor as far as grant applications, successful grant applications for any infrastructure projects that you might be going forward with at that level. So
I have a comment.
Okay.
Regarding your truthful statement that there's a lack of funds to do these things.
Right.
You might talk to the people in Boston that if we were not required to pay more than $46 an hour for unskilled laborers, perhaps the money would go a little bit further. And of course, I was impressed with the fact that you're going to take into account the principles established by the Global Warming Solutions Act. I mean, I'm very interested in having that solved, and I'm sure we can do that.
And that's part of the whole the whole big picture.
And the green
of
dot,
what we're
too, was
looking at.
nice. I like that.
Exactly, so, but I'll be sure to call Boston as soon as I get out of here and talk to them about the prevailing wage problem. You're not the only one to have that, I can assure you.
Can you just recap at
Sure.
high level what the process is and what the next step in the
Sure.
overall timeline that you're looking to operate in?
So the timeline is fairly aggressive. We're to be completed with this project by the end of the calendar year. That's this calendar year. And but right now, this is sort of the second part of the local process right here, asking communities individually what's happening in your community, where are you focusing your efforts. We're compiling all of that information back at the office to create a GIS map of all of the communities and all of those priority areas. We'll be mapping all of those. As much as I like paper and markers, it doesn't really fly in a real meeting, so we need to do this electronically. But what we're doing is collecting all that information. We'll be presenting it in a regional forum. That's actually at the end of June. I have a flyer for that. So we'll be promoting that, and hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of participation. Jeannie Hebert from the Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce is here as well. And so what we'll be doing is we're going to have a forum to present baseline data information about the valley, what we've collected, sort of create a picture of what's going on in the valley right now, and have folks participate in roundtable groups to take a look at what all these priority areas are that we've heard about. Make sure that participants, if they didn't get a chance to participate in this process, to be able to give us some feedback on what things have we missed, what are we missing. And then what we'll do over the summer is take a look at all of the locally identified areas and apply a vast array of screening criteria to see how many of these locally identified areas might filter up to regional significance. So we're sort of trying to create a bit of a tiered approach to see how many of these areas might filter up to be of regional significance. Certainly doesn't mean that the local areas disappear. Those are still locally significant, certainly, but there may be some that float kind of up to a regional significance. I wonder if that four-town project, for example, might be one of those. Multi-municipal, vast area, has the infrastructure necessary, transportation infrastructure and so on. So that might be one of those areas that would filter up to regional significance. We'll pull all of that together, have one more regional forum in the fall, and then have a complete map, report, and so on, done by the end of the calendar year. That's my goal. So
what do we do,
that's where we are right
what's in net gain at the end of this?
the net gain for the community, certainly at the end of all of this, is you've participated in a regional planning effort that is identifying your priorities at the local level for development and preservation. What that does is position you as a community at the state level for grant funds for either open space preservation, for example, or infrastructure dollars through the MassWorks program. The predecessor to the 495 project was the South Coast Rail study, and that was a very similar regional planning study based on the South Coast Rail line extension in the southeastern area of the state. That plan resulted in an executive order from the governor's office, 525. And what that executive order does is it directs all state agencies that are committing dollars to that region for either infrastructure or open space or any kind of grant projects, that those projects are consistent with the South Coast Rail Plan. So they have to show that they're actually spending money based on a planning effort. The 495 project will likely be pulled into that executive order. And since we've been working so closely with the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, it's likely that all of these projects that continue to use this sort of process, starting from the ground up and looking at priorities, will be sort of pulled into that executive order. So state agencies will be looking for consistency with a plan for projects that you file. So it positions the community very well for competitive grant rounds for infrastructure and for preservation dollars. So that's the carrot that goes with all of this. So, and it's a great opportunity to tell the state, what's important to you as a community. And where are you focusing your energies and your efforts for development and for preservation?
And this is the first time a program like this has been run?
I'm sorry?
Is this one of the first times a program like this has run?
This is essentially South Coast Rail, 495 Metro West, Blackstone Valley. So we're doing this of our own. We don't have state dollars funding this effort. We're doing this as our own agency using our planning dollars to continue this planning process in our region.
And
so,
what's the kind of success rate for those that have been involved with this and participated within the rail and the 495 project to actually getting grant funding versus not?
I can give you an example. Easton, Mass., which is part of the South Coast Rail project, received multiple millions of dollars for a downtown revitalization project from multiple funding sources, MassWorks. There was some DCR money for some open space as part of a mixed-use development that they are undergoing right now, and they were part of the South Coast Rail project. They were able to aggregate state dollars from a couple of different funding sources and go forward with a mixed-use development that got the necessary infrastructure and construction dollars that they needed to move forward with that project. And that was identified as one of the priority projects within the South Coast Rail. 495 Metro West Development Compact was just completed in February of this year. But we do have an example in Littleton that has a development sort of going around the Littleton train station, and the train station is part of that project. That was identified as a priority development area, and they are moving ahead with that project, and they will, I know that they did receive MassWorks grants for that project as well. So there isn't enough to go around, but it certainly helps, in that competitive grant round. They can't give everything to everybody, but you're on that priority list if you've participated in a project like this. So I'm not trying to strong-arm you to participate, but I think, if nothing else, it's a great way to communicate with the state what's important to you as a community. So we're just here to listen. Okay. Does that answer your question adequately, or do you need more examples?
Yeah,
or-
that's
I can certainly
No, a
provide
couple
more.
references is fine.
Okay, great, okay. So if I could just go through really quick the map, thank you, sorry. I bet you didn't think I was gonna talk this long when you said I could come up, did you?
We don't want you to have a heart attack. You can.
Well, I've talked this fast my whole life, so don't worry, there's no danger of that, I don't think. Nope.
Break it, you own it.
It's theirs.
All right. So quickly, if I could, and again, this was from a conversation that I had going through some of the information that I already knew about the community, and then my meeting with Sean as well. We went through and we identified essentially 6 priority development areas in the community. The first one being this industrially zoned area that's just south of 146, right here. You have the zoning in place, and it's ready to go, certainly from a local permitting process, to encourage industrial commercial development here. The second one is your 43D priority development site that's already been identified through that state program here on the other side of 146. So you have 2 terrific properties right on either side.
Excuse me, hasn't that lapsed? Didn't that have to be done within a certain time,
The permit would expire, but not with the priority development site.
Okay.
That's okay.
The designation itself remains,
Okay.
yeah, okay. The third one is the Stanley Woolen Mill redevelopment area. That project, it's a great site. That was also identified on our regional comprehensive economic development strategy plan that we submit to the federal government through the EDA. So that was the third one that we identified. The fourth one is the Burnett Mill site as a priority development area or a focus area for development or redevelopment, in this case. And then the Wonkatuck Mill as a housing mixed-use development that also was listed on the SEDS plan to go to the federal government. Here is number 5, and then number 6 is the TIF area that you have with BJ's down almost on the border, right off of 146 as well. You certainly have other areas that are zoned for commercial and industrial development, but those were the 6 that sort of rose to the top from a priority standpoint from our conversations. So I don't know if there are other areas that you would consider to be key focus points or focus areas for encouraging development or focusing development. We didn't have anything that we listed as preservation areas. I do know that the SNET, the Southern New England, the trunk line, does go through here. A couple of communities but you certainly, and in Douglas, have identified that as a preservation priority because of its opportunity to be a trail. So I don't know if that's something that you folks wanted to identify as well. You don't have to. I'm just offering that up that was identified in Douglas as well. But those are the 6 top priority development areas. Are there any others that you might that you want to mention or name as we go forward? Is that covered? Sean, good job.
Yeah, There was one area, wasn't there, with the rest area, they were gonna put a, is that?
Yeah, that was all set to go about 5 years ago.
Is that number one?
But it died.
Yeah,
I think that's the first one.
that
right?
is the first one.
Number one.
That was approved back in 1872, and I think we're just waiting for some,
Patience.
Patience,
Patience is
yeah.
key.
We're
You don't wanna just rush off and do
Oh, that's
something.
right.
Right away. No, hold off. Hold off for the right one.
I didn't have any input on the preservation area, but the chairman of the Conservation Committee, Russ Holden, is here. So you all maybe
Oh,
can
hi, Russ.
hook up after or whatever.
That'd be
You can
great,
meet with
okay.
him. He can definitely give you some insight.
That'd be terrific. I'd love to do that if I could. Thank you very much. I'll definitely do that. Okay.
And as part of number six, does that kind of extend the 146A corridor? Like, where does that stop?
Well, as we identified at this point, it was this area that was actually zoned for industrial development, and so it was really the zoning district, at this section of 146. Should that extend? And
I didn't,
continue?
that was more the question, I didn't know, had you identified that whole area as number six, or is number six just from one point forward? Like, I
It was
can't see
intended, I
that.
think, at this point, was the zoning district itself, that's right here. But certainly you have that same zoning district moving up here at 146, 146A
I
as
guess
well.
that continues.
So
Alright.
if you think that should add on to that, we can certainly do that.
Because we have an existing industrial park north of the
Yeah.
BJ site there,
Okay,
so.
yep. But there's certainly time for, more additions at the regional forum. If folks, come with more additional ideas, we can certainly add those as well. I just want to make sure that going into that, we didn't have any surprises. Sir?
You missed the Providence Worcester Bikeway.
Oh, the bike path, of course. Thank you. That's a big one on the scene now. I'll add that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got through that quick enough. You get some water and sewer line? Sorry. Thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. So, I'd like to open up, open a public hearing, water and sewer hookup fee. Input from anybody? Sign in.
Thank you. Mike Pataski, 24 Church Street. I guess I was sort of expecting to hear what you had in your mind before I comment on it, but I'll come up and kibitz without knowing what you have on your minds. As Water and Sewer Commissioners, you have an absolute fiduciary responsibility to the financial health of the enterprise funds. Now, if you're considering an abatement of hookup fees, that's an abdication of those fiduciary responsibilities. You should not be considering anything else except the health of those enterprise funds. Now, curiously, I learned only today that town council has been providing a lot of input on why and how you should be abating. Several years ago, that exact same lawyer sent a whole stream of emails with Bruce, Peter, and myself as addressees, giving us all sorts of rationales on why we should not and could not abate hookup fees. The proof, what this proves, any given lawyer, if you pay him for an opinion, will give you the opinion you want. So therefore, I would not go and hang your deliberations tonight on the opinion of a single lawyer who's giving duplicitous or duplicative or contravening positions on abating hookup fees. I think, from my point of view, you're being asked or you're considering shortchanging the enterprise funds for the purpose of allowing more money to flow into the school project. That's all well and good. But in my opinion, that rises to the level of misfeasance on your part. I would hope you would consider all aspects of it and perhaps continue this hearing and open a fresh hearing to find out why you're being asked to make this abatement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
John Higgins, 65 Main Street. Couple of questions I have, and it goes back to when this all started. I heard recently that it was the DPW's director's job to move forward with the fees for the high school. I guess we couldn't answer this tonight, and it's just wanted to put some thoughts in your mind. Who exactly did request to the DPW director to set forth an unprecedented set of fees for something that's really never ever been done to a municipal school, municipal building at all? I think I know the answer, and it was a certain few people that were directing the then town manager. I don't think it came from the Board of Selectmen. So I'd like to get that answer at some particular time in consideration of your vote tonight. There was no direction, from what I would understand, from the Board of Selectmen, who are the water and sewer gurus here, or the bosses, and the town manager at the time would do just about anything for a certain few people. So I question the validity of the fact that this was brought up to shoot holes in the side of the school project. My opinion, of course, but still, the question still remains, who was the one that instructed the DPW director to come up with this fee? There was nothing in the application about a municipal building, residential and commercial. That's it. So I hope not to really open up a big can of worms here, but I guess if we have to continue this over tonight, then I guess that's what we'll have to do.
Thank you.
Before Ben goes into an explanation, someone talked about a vote tonight. I don't think we can have a vote tonight.
And why is that?
Well, because we didn't notify the public that we're going to vote tonight. If you look at the thing that was put in the paper, it talked about a discussion of the fees. If you look at the Board of Selectmen agenda that was posted, it talks about public hearing, high school project, water and sewer hookup fee. Now, if you look down on our agenda, you can see meeting minutes, discussion, action, vote in bold print, old business, discussion, action, vote, bold print, new business, discussion, action, vote, and so forth. But there is no reference to a vote. If people just looked at the public notice, they would not know that there's going to be a vote tonight. And that may be one of the reasons why we don't have that many people here. So just, I'm mentioning that as a point of information.
Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. I guess to answer the question very simply, any connection to the water and sewer system requires an application. I know there's a lot of hang-up with respect to residential, industrial, commercial, the lack of municipal. By the way, there is no municipal use. I mean, look at our zoning map over on the wall. There is no municipal use. All that aside, that's how this process started. The information was provided to the school on the minimum standards for water and sewer construction, along with applications for new accounts. Again, we can discuss at length the validity of the residential versus commercial, industrial versus municipal versus institutional. That's how this all started. Some of you that were on the board at the time, I forget the actual meeting, but when it finally came to the board formally making a decision, I think it was in January of 2011, that the board voted to uphold the fees. That has gotten us where we are today. I'm not sure what else I can provide, to the board at this point. Everything should be in the file. I am more than happy to answer any questions if you have anything from the DPW.
As I understand it, there are no specific rationale by which towns adopt fees. There are some general principles. One is they must not be arbitrary. We don't have one fee for you, another fee for someone else, and I think we meet that test. And they be uniform across users of a similar nature. Now, as you know, the water and sewer accounts are independent enterprise funds. And all the expenses that they incur, both in operating and capital improvements and so forth, are borne by the users of the service. Now, there's talk about the school paying for these things. The school does not pay for water and sewer. The school does not pay for electricity. The taxpayers in general, all the taxpayers in Uxbridge, pay for those things when we appropriate money to run the schools. Were we to, and I don't think we have the legal authority to waive the fee for the school, but were we to do so, that would mean that people like myself and Jay, who aren't on the system, I don't know about others, we would not be paying some of that money. It would all revert back to the current users, the current people on the water and sewer line, and they would see their charges increase dramatically because the users have to come up with the money to finance the system.
Peter, just a pause.
Go ahead.
Don't SIFs, and I believe SIFs get charged to the municipal operations as well?
What's a SIF?
A fee for
New tank or
new tank or improvement on there. So
with the water line they ran down the Quaker Highway.
Yeah.
SIF gets added to the town hall and that ultimately gets paid
By the taxpayers.
by the taxpayer as
That's-
well. So that
that's
cost is actually not shared solely by the ratepayers. It is paid proportionately or pro rata to the municipal buildings versus the
Yes,
residential commercial.
Yes, and the municipal buildings stand in exactly the same position as any other user on the system, because we use the system. The fire station in South Uxbridge is a municipal building. They would not be assessed the user fee in any way because they're not on the system. And municipal buildings don't pay property taxes by definition of being municipal.
This isn't a user fee. This is
No, I know that. I'm talking about all the money that comes in to run the water department and the sewer department comes from the users. It's not a user fee, it's a hookup fee, because you're going to be a user.
which you're gonna pay for as
That's
a whole.
That's correct. That's correct. Absolutely correct. Now, the reason there's an issue here comes from the school building committee in the town of Uxbridge not adopting the recommendation of the State School Building Authority. And the State School Building Authority's recommendation was that the town of Uxbridge can best solve the school problems, the school space problems that the town identified, best be solved by renovations. If
That's
they
not
had-
the subject right here.
Absolutely it is. I'm trying to get you to understand and others to understand how we got to where we are. Had they followed the recommendation of the State School Building Authority, none of this would be an issue, because they already had water and sewer at those buildings, you see? And they didn't do that. They went out there. If they wanted to put their own sewer system in, or their own water system in, that would be okay, but decision was made to hook up to the town system. And like any other users, they have to pay those fees. And if we vote they don't have to, we're gonna be sued by the people on the water and sewer lines.
But they didn't vote to put on it. The taxpayers voted to build a new school and approved it.
That's correct.
So the taxpayers are the one that made the decision, not the school people. when you look at the system in its entirety, think about how the whole process works. We're talking about connection fees, which are used for expansion or upgrades of the existing system. When the original system went into place, the way that the billing occurred is the town borrowed, the taxpayers, this is before the enterprise fund,
Yes.
borrowed the money to put in the system, and then they distributed it out as people hooked up into the system. The hookup fee was to recover the cost of that borrowing. At the time, in 1979, up until still outstanding, that money, there was a gap. The ratepayers never paid back the full amount that was borrowed. And the townspeople covered the gap. Here, when we're talking about what is the impending upgrade to the sewer plant, which is really what's precipitating a lot of this conversation right now, the same thing's gonna occur. Pro rata, we're gonna look at the municipal buildings in the town versus the residential and commercial. Residential and commercial people are gonna have to pick up their share, and then whatever share the municipal buildings that are on the system have, the townspeople are gonna have to pay and pick that up. So the argument to say that the townspeople aren't going to pay for it, I don't think has a lot of merit, because we will. The decision that this board ultimately has to make is, how are we gonna fund that upgrade? And what are we gonna do with the enterprise fund piece that's already been collected? And that's the connection fees. There's $1.8 million that's already been collected by only commercial, industrial, and residential hookup fees. Do you credit that $1.8 million just to commercial, residential, and their pro rata share, or do you credit that to the entire total cost? Therefore, the municipal buildings who hadn't contributed would get a credit for it. I think it's very clean and simple if we leave it the way that it has been and what I believe it was intended for, which is the town and tax people are gonna pick up the cost for the municipal buildings because there's gonna be a share of the overall usage that is owed to the municipal buildings. And when we calculate that big fee, the number's gonna drive itself out. If we start splitting hairs between this one paid, this one didn't pay, then you gotta look at that, all that connection fee money and say, all right, how do we know how much we should attribute to the school hooking up, because they're the only ones who paid it, versus the other buildings? It becomes very muddy and very messy.
I'm not sure I agree that the fees that we have been collecting are due to the possibility of future upgrades to the system.
Well,
We haven't addressed that yet. That's still down the pike.
but that's what it's been advertised as.
Well, I don't know that it's been advertised as that, but the fact is that the fees that we have been collected pursuant to the existing policy of the water department and the sewer department as to the assessment and the collection of the fees. And they weren't happy about it. I was on the board, I don't know if you were, Bruce, when Summerfield came and was upset. I think Mike alluded to that. They said, wait a minute, we ran the line, we paid for the pipe, we did all that stuff, and now you want this hookup fee. And they were upset, but we got the information, we listened to the argument, and we made a determination that, well, that's what it is, you have to pay the fee. And when I read the stuff about how we arrive at the fee, it is not arbitrary, it's based specifically on capacity. And everything is designed according to certain standards. Houses are designed according to certain loads on different levels of the house, as you know. Commercial, industrial buildings, the same thing. Those are design standards. And they have to be built to that design, and the fee is based on the design standard that we have to build our system for and maintain the capacity to treat a certain amount of sewer and the capacity to deliver a certain amount of water.
That's true, but if you really look at that fee, it's residential and commercial. There hasn't been one municipality that's paid that fee in this town. And why would you make DPW or the library, the senior center pay a fee if we gotta pay that fee, the town, as a taxpayer?
And we're
Now,
gonna pay it with interest.
let me finish. If
Go ahead.
this fee supposedly is to the maintenance of the pump station or whatever to maintain and, well, right now, that station runs to Michael Agenda. Now, we don't know if the school's gonna take care of it, DPW, I'm sure Ben thinks he's gonna take care of it, but a fee like that, to me, is charging the taxpayer more money than they're gonna pay on a rate charge, because you're not gonna get anything back on that. Why are we gonna spend $160,000 as a taxpayer for hookup fee?
Financed
We're
over
paying
20
it
years.
to put it into the enterprise funds, which are in need of the money. Now, let me address this issue of residential and commercial, okay? We have churches that are on this system, and when they build a new building and have a bigger line put in, they pay the hookup fee. We don't have to mention every kind of use that there is.
We don't own the churches, Peter.
It doesn't make any difference
Yes,
whether we
it-
own
I
it or
believe it
not.
does.
No.
They were assets to the town. All these buildings are assets to this town.
Yes, there are assets
You
to
can't put a
the town.
lien on it if the water bill doesn't get paid, because it's an asset to Uxbridge. How do you collect money if the school goes broke?
That's not the issue.
Well-
They are enterprise funds, and the funds have to go into the enterprise fund in accordance with the user that creates the
Well, in my
charge.
opinion, I don't believe that, so.
Well, I can't speak for
Right.
other people's opinions. I'm just telling you that I do not believe that we have the legal authority to take one user and say, we're gonna treat you separately.
How come we never charge the police station, if that's the case? Or the DPW building that was,
I don't
built
think we
not long
even
ago.
charge the conservation area right next to the Mumford River in Lynch's. And that has a water hookup, and they were never charged any money.
Well, I don't know. Is it possible if they were hooked up before the imposition of the fees? I don't know about that. But as far as I'm
Point
aware,
is that they weren't
all
charged.
users who have tied into the system since the adoption of the fee schedule have been required to pay the fee. And if that's not the case, then we're derelict in some
I
way.
agree with you, residential and commercial, yes. They had to pay the fee.
How about industrial? They don't have to pay?
Well, those
Well,
three, industrial, commercial, residential, just like the bylaw says.
Well, no, it doesn't say industrial. You said, it says residential and commercial. But we don't have a commercial zone, we have a business zone.
Right.
How about agriculture? If you locate in the agricultural zone, are you exempt from paying a fee if you hook up to the town system? No.
Well, if
course
you're
not.
building a house,
Doesn't matter what you're building.
if you're building an industry, you're gonna have to pay it.
The whole idea is, we cannot be arbitrary. And what you're suggesting is that we say, okay, you have to pay, but you don't have to pay.
I think that has to
And we
be
can't
changed.
do that.
Well, I think we are being arbitrary by taking one and saying you have to pay when we never applied that fee to any other.
Well, maybe Ben can address that, I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I want to add to this, again, there's a lot of issue with the use. Has there been another institutional facility in this town outside of the school? Is there? I don't think so. To say that a user that would come in, let's say somebody wants to open up a private school. It's allowed by zoning, right here in the center of town, Burnetts. All hypothetical. So what you're saying is the institutional use should be waived.
No.
No, it's not owned by the town.
Municipal
There
use.
is no municipal use. It's all based on the use, the land use.
I don't think they were supposed to be changed. That's why it's not in
Well, see,
here.
I mean, that's where everybody's
That's
getting
what I
hung
believe.
up.
And the way it's written is change of use, which you
And the
took
word
it-
change
So
of
if you
use.
took it from Uxbridge Public High to a private boarding school, then it's a
Right.
for-profit organization, commercial operation, and therefore it would get charged a fee because now it's making money off of our resources.
I mean, yeah, any change of use. You could take
And that's what the
Harry's
bylaw
Pizza.
says.
Yeah, I
Any
mean,
change of use, we
Any change of
reassess the fee.
use. But I think everybody's getting too hung up on this municipal use. There is no municipal use. Open up the zoning bylaw and show me where there's a municipal use. There's not.
Show me a municipal fee
For what?
for sewer hookup.
It's not based on municipal, it's based on use. We're talking about an institutional use. Why is there a whole section within Title V?
Charter schools.
Excuse me?
That came out with charter schools. They're profit.
Institutional, look at the heading. institutional. Just like you have residential, you have commercial, you have
That
industrial.
document's not designed for assessing fees, that document's designed
Then
for
why did the
sizing
town-
Title V systems.
Correct.
That we
That's
picked
what-
up.
Why did the
what the
town
fee is
accept
based
that? I wasn't here when that was brought forward. It was used as a mechanism by which to come up with a fee.
Which doesn't make it right, but makes it is what it is.
Correct.
It was a document that was designed, when that document was authored, under Mass General Law, it was designed for Title V specifications, not for setting fees on how you would hook up fees.
Again,
That's what this commission did at some point, decided it was an appropriate document, which in some some circles we have to look at, really, is that the most viable way to assess this fee?
And that's fine, and
Right.
yes, I mean, I would suspect that that's something we'll be doing going forward. I guess the point I'm just trying to make is that there's a lot of people out there that are hung up on municipal use. There is no municipal use. There is other land uses and uses that go into that. We can argue the validity of Title V. I can tell you right now, Title V is used for all types of design estimates and design of sanitary sewers. I would put my money on it that the school system was designed in accordance with those flows. So again, we can talk the validity of Title V. That's the mechanism that was chosen. That was the mechanism that was used to develop the fee. The use is institutional, plain and simple. Is there an error in the connection applications? I guess one could argue that, because there's only a residential, a commercial, industrial. Should there be just one application? Probably. Check your use.
Well, is there an error in the bylaw?
Is there? I don't know.
Because it's not explicit to municipal?
But there's no municipal use.
I would argue
I mean, I guess
that
if there's an error in the bylaw, is there an error because it does not single out municipal facilities? I guess you can say yes.
I think that the net is, the bylaw definitely needs some work, and this whole thing needs clearing up.
Correct.
And what happens is, and this is, you take something that we originally switched into an enterprise fund, we had to get some pricing down, we used I imagine people did some research, and then you go to use it in practice, and you gotta tweak stuff in practice and
Right.
always evolve it. And that's, I think, what has to happen here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a fee that ultimately is gonna be borne by the taxpayer, that we're gonna pay 20 years at 5% interest on to ourselves.
No, we're not paying it to ourselves, putting it in the enterprise account, that's the key.
Hold on. We're gonna put it into the enterprise fund, but whatever the enterprise fund is short,
Yes.
it's gonna share pro rata with the town people.
Not
based on
necessarily,
municipal
no,
to pick up.
no.
Absolutely.
Doesn't
Where's that
have
money
to.
gonna come from?
From the people on the
Which
enterprise
is the
lines.
town.
Only to the extent that we're exposed through municipal buildings.
But Peter, today let's just, simple math. You have a $1 million project, you've put aside in connection fees $100,000. 10% of that project was collected up front by people who are not municipal, the pure ratepayers, the commercial, the industrial, and the residential. Take that $100,000 and you apply that to whatever pro rata share you're gonna charge the residential people. You don't take it off the top for everyone, and then you carve out the municipal side. That's the way that it's kind of set up right now to do it. If you follow
I'm missing something, go through it again.
you have, say you had a connection charge of $1 million.
Okay,
An upgrade charge of $1 million.
okay.
We've collected in connection fees 10%.
Now, excuse me, an upgrade charge, upgrade of the system?
That's what we're talking about now.
Okay, so somehow Ben has to spend $1 million to upgrade the system?
The talk is,
Okay,
yeah,
all
like
right,
the $30
fine.
million that we're
Okay.
discussing for the sewer.
All right, okay.
100,000 of that's been collected in these connection charges, collected only from residential, commercial, and industrial ratepayers so far.
Well, collected from anyone new in the system who wants to hook up today will pay today's hookup fee, is that correct?
Correct.
Talking about the existing money collected.
Existing.
The existing
There's
money
no
has come
new
from no
hookups.
one else but residential
Existing money, you're talking about the money in the...
in the bank, in the enterprise fund.
reserve of the, okay, sure.
Reserves. Okay? When this project comes in, you have 4 types of people that are gonna have to pay for it. Right, you're gonna have industrial people, commercial, residential, and the municipal buildings are gonna have to pay their share of that. So your bill comes in for $1 million. You take the reserve funds that have already been paid, you take it, actually, before you do that, you take the $1 million, you split it pro rata between the 3 that pay into the reserve fund and the municipal group that hasn't. Then you apply the credit against the 3 that have been paid, and then the townspeople are left to pick up the rest. If you start mulling about different buildings and figuring out what percentage they paid into this $100,000 pool downstream, it's gonna become ugly and
No,
muddy.
because it's done it all the time. The CIF, right, is applied pro rata in accordance with either pipe size or gallons of usage, or some rational,
So you're gonna-
non-discriminatory,
So the-
non-arbitrary procedure.
But if you were a ratepayer and you knew the municipal didn't contribute to that $100,000 that's coming off the top, yet they're getting the benefit of it, wouldn't you turn around and say that this water and sewer commissioners are just as liable for giving their money to the town?
Yes.
Because they didn't contribute part of the $100,000. So why even get into that mess? Let's keep them separate, like they've always been.
No,
Just
no,
keep
no,
them
no,
separate.
no, they're not separate. We have to put it in the enterprise funds, because if you don't do that, you're not adequately accounting for your expenditures, your revenues. That's the whole idea of an enterprise fund. It's not to hide who pays what, it's to clearly identify the source of the cost and how the cost is rationally and non-arbitrarily spread among the users. When we go to a store and buy something from the store, we're contributing automatically a portion of the overhead and the insurance and the taxes and all those things. That's how it is. And the enterprise fund is exactly the same thing.
I disagree, but,
Well, I understand.
you know, I think the bylaws have to be fixed. The Hill, any municipal building in this town, which we own, shouldn't be paying a fee to turn it on or to build. Why are we
Who
paying?
should pay it? The building doesn't pay.
There should be no fee
The
for
town
a
doesn't
minute.
pay, the taxpayers pay. The
Correct.
school doesn't pay,
That's why
the
they,
taxpayers
Peter,
pay.
that's why those fees shouldn't be charged to the municipalities. Because who pays it? You just
We
said it.
do.
We shouldn't be
do.
paying it.
Well, maybe,
We should not be paying that. These are assets to the
then
town.
we shouldn't pay to buy books for the school then. We shouldn't pay
Peter.
for the electric bill. Of course we have to do those things.
If I could just add one more thing, kind of off of this, there seems to be some kind of connection here with the reasoning behind this being the sewer plant upgrade. That is not even factored into this.
That's right.
This is following the procedure and policy set in place by the Board of Selectmen, at some time ago. The other thing that I'll just add is, talking about, the fee, what does this charge? Initially, I think Jay had mentioned it, that when the sewers were put in town, they were, users were assessed a betterment. Again, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but at some point, the betterments went away, and it became a sewer privilege fee. In this case, we're talking sewer. Now it's a connection fee, which happened in 2008. So, that's the progression to where we got to where we're at. I don't have an answer for you on any municipal buildings, the police station, the
Right, I know you
DPW.
don't. You did what you were supposed to do.
Right.
Correct. I agree with that. But that doesn't make it, I don't think it makes it right to charge the taxpayers fees for even building permits. Even when you get charged to build,
Right.
that should have been waived, in my opinion.
The only one that benefits is the public, and so it has to be a municipal building. So why do you turn around and charge them such fees, especially, a large fee like this?
But I guess I just want to, as a point of clarification, I'm not charging them the fees.
This year. All
Yeah.
right.
I just want to, as a point of clarification, I'm not charging the fees. I am following through
John?
with what is in front of me, what I'm charged with.
I
They-
understand that.
As far as, there's only been residential, commercial, industrial in this town, what else is there? Somebody give me another
Well,
use.
It's gonna be municipal pretty soon.
But there is no municipal use. Good luck on trying to establish what municipal use is. It's not a use. It's the underlying use of that facility or that property. I mean, that's what our zoning is based on.
Yeah, but I know you keep going back to the use. Yes, there's a use. Again, the town assets. Why are we charging ourselves to pay a fee?
Well,
Now, you can.
That's
that-
for you all to
That we're
determine.
borrowing money
Yeah.
to go sit into an account until it's needed at an interest rate. Financially, it just doesn't make any sense.
In my mind, the enterprise funds are separate business entities.
That's exactly right.
If this was anything different, such as a sewer district, there would be no discussion. Absolutely zero.
But it's not.
I know. So, based on the information that I was provided back in 2009, 2010, we are well within the rights of the enterprise fund to do this. It wasn't until January of 2011 that the discussion kept coming and coming and coming. The board, I won't say this board, but the Board of Selectmen voted, yes, we will assess this fee. And now we are here, almost a year and a half later, arguing about the validity of how this fee was calculated. I think it's up to the board here to just make a decision, are we or are we not going to waive the fee, so we can just move forward. I don't think we should sit here and belabor the topic. It's either are we or are we not.
Correct.
I think the information has been provided on all sides. We can agree to disagree. You know, whatever the decision is, whether it's we have to assess the fee or not, we all have to live with. I think it's up to the board just to make a decision.
Right.
Great point.
And again, I mean, what you did is correct. It's just the opinions of some, and
Right.
we have to look. Now, because you have that enterprise fund, that thing has not added to that sewer in I don't know how many years, in
What
town.
hasn't added- That's correct.
Town.
That's correct.
I mean, you would think that you
All
would
the
look at.
additions were done by developers.
Right.
Who, after putting the new pipe in, paid a hookup fee.
Right, and they made money too.
Okay. If they lost money, they'd still have to
Still
pay the
yeah,
fee.
they-
Okay.
But Pete, that's,
But
all
they
I'm
had-
saying
But they
is,
had an option to put septic systems into those
That's
places,
correct.
and it became more financially viable for them to offer up.
That's
the
correct.
reason that enterprise fund, I don't think is gonna stand the life, is because there's nothing added to it. You know, there's not one house in this town that's getting added to it in 25 years. So it's still the ratepayers that are gonna be, whatever happens, you know, unless we have a plan to extend it.
Houses
might-
were added to it when they ran the line up Route 16, because a lot of the houses
Yeah.
tied in, and they paid, I believe,
Correct, Peter, but there's a
the
lot more,
hookup fee.
there's a lot more
that
houses
right,
in
Dan?
town.
That's right. They did.
Yeah,
The
they
residents,
did.
residents did, yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are.
No, all I'm saying is, if we don't grow this system,
Yeah.
that enterprise account is not going anywhere, other than the ratepayers paying the bill all the time.
That's correct.
So that's, I just wanted to make that point, that's all.
If I may add another perspective to this. I made reference to a fiduciary responsibility to the enterprise fund, but nobody, or at least 4 out of the 5 of you, aren't addressing that aspect of it. Enterprise funds operate on a business model. The enterprise fund have a 5-person board of directors. Those of you that are in the corporate world, can boards of directors refuse to work for the fiduciary good of the business entities that they're sitting on the boards of? I don't think so. You're the boards of directors of the enterprise fund. Look to the enterprise fund and its health first and foremost. That is your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exactly correct.
Except that I think in this case, the assets are the children and the future of this community.
I agree with that, that's fine.
And
It
we're
doesn't
not,
change.
we're not in a business.
That
all right?
doesn't
We're not
change
on Wall
anything.
Street to run a business.
You are in a business.
No, we're not.
Mass general law.
Yeah.
All right, order. I guess we don't have
We can't vote, can we?
the action on this, discussion action, so.
Well, that's just my opinion. I'm just telling you that I
Oh.
don't think we have the authority to vote tonight.
I mean, I think people were well aware of what we were doing tonight, myself. If they were gonna come, they were gonna come, whether you're saying you're voting or, I mean, it's,
Are you saying that a public hearing notice must state that a vote may be taken at that public hearing?
Not necessarily, because many times you don't take a vote at a public hearing. You have a public hearing, you solicit.
But I'm saying if a vote is envisioned, that notice has to be included in the notice?
I don't hang this on the public hearing aspect,
The agenda.
but our agenda
And it's the format, the
and
prior.
the format of the agenda. And clearly, if you look at it, we go out of our way to say discussion, action, vote on everything except this particular item. So, but again, I'm just a dumbbell farmer. I don't know anything.
We know better than that, Peter.
Peter, if I can say one thing, and it's just a semantic thing, but
Okay.
we need to bear in mind, the board is entertaining an abatement of this fee. We're all saying waiver because we're looking for a complete, because the groups are looking for a complete reduction, but the fee has been assessed. The waiver is off the table. The assessment took place in January of 2011. So this hearing is about a potential abatement, not a waiver, and it sounds, I know it's just a semantic deal, but legally it matters.
Has the fee been paid?
It has not, but it has been assessed, it has been charged, it has been billed, so to
Okay.
speak.
But people
board
are
made it clear.
assessed they get a bill for their property tax, and you're not allowed to seek an abatement unless you pay the full tax. You have to pay it, and then I don't know if it applies in this case.
In this case, the board extended the payment date of the fee that was
Okay,
assessed.
okay. The question then arises, because we go back to Summerfield. They approached the board with a similar request. They thought the fee was excessive, and they made their case, and we decided that the fee was not excessive. So what do? Do we go back and give them the same
Are they a
abatement?
school? Are they a municipal?
See,
property?
we can't do it on that basis, Jay. I mean, we can't, I'm telling you.
Well, that's the way we're looking at it right now. it seems
I
to be.
know that. I know that you're looking at it that way, but we have no
That
basis
when you have a
for
builder
looking at it
doing
that way.
something, whether it's commercial or residential, he's gonna be charged a fee to hook it up. It's like a commercial company, Pete, he's gonna make a profit on it.
Hey, it was
They
a
make
cheaper,
money
more
on it.
cost-effective route for
The fee is
him.
not a function of whether or not they make a profit.
Well, it
If
seems
they
to be for
lose their
the-
money, they still have to pay the fee.
Correct, but that's the chance they take
Yeah.
as a
So it
builder.
doesn't make any difference whether they're successful or not successful. We get a fee based on the hookup, assessed in accordance with the existing regulations and criteria established and approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
That's the basis of it.
Right.
And we can change those things if we want.
Right. And we may have to.
Well, that's the matter to be decided.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not
I don't know, it just, we
disagreeing
have
that
to look at
point.
it, right,
Has to be cleaned up.
right. So I guess
If the board chooses, you may close the public hearing tonight. Secondly, you may make a vote or a consensus of the board so the public knows where you stand, and then maybe reaffirm your vote at the next meeting.
Say that again?
If the board chooses, they can close the public hearing tonight. They can make a vote or get a consensus of how the board feels, so the public knows where you stand on this, and then reaffirm the vote at the next meeting, correcting the agenda, discussion, action, vote.
Or we could hold open the public hearing
You
until
could,
our next.
the board could also do that as well.
Sometimes entities that have public hearings will have a public hearing, and then they'll accept written comment for a certain time after that, but that's the board's choice. We don't have to do
no,
that.
we can close it, public comment has been given, we can close it if you want.
Yes,
or-
correct.
And then just vote it as a
And
regular
then
action.
discuss and vote at our next meeting,
That's correct. You can do that.
because it's, I think everybody that's wanted to publicly say something was here tonight. You're right. We started and we moved around here, Pete. Answer the question and we started discussing. Go ahead, Mark, I'll give you.
Good evening, Mark Stacy, 312 East Street. The original high school narrative stated all costs for sewer and water were to be included within the cost of the new high school. I have the copy of the page right here. Basically says the $43 million project will include all costs to connect water and sewer to the high school. They should pay it. It's part of the project. Sewer fees are set by a formula that is based on capacity, which we've seen Ben talk to at length here before. It's a standard practice, and it provides an across-the-board fair methodology for determining the rate structure. To stray from this for just the new high school will be setting a very bad precedent, as Peter has also brought out. Why would the architect build the pump with a maximum capacity that Ben spoke about if they're only saying they're only going to use a portion of that capacity? So us taxpayers have paid all this extra money for a larger pump station that may never be used, or may be used on the capacity based upon Ben's calculations. Peter, if you were to build a 5-bedroom house, the cost to hook up the sewer is based on the number of bedrooms and fixed capacity for the effluent, et cetera. The builder could justify a reduction in saying that I'm building a 5-bedroom house, but there are only 2 people that are going to be living in it. So why don't you reduce my fee? Are you going to entertain this for everyone who builds a house in Uxbridge or an apartment building or a Summerfield or Canal Village?
Can I just correct you for a minute?
Yes.
No, it's not bedrooms, you pay one fee,
Okay.
$3,000. Hook
All
it
right.
up,
I thought it was capacity, but, okay.
just so you know.
In the case of Summerfield or Canal Village, they'd have the same right as the high school to come and say, I'd like a reduction in my fee. I think it's a bad precedent. Not charging required hookup fees is not fair to the water and sewer users themselves. The water users have already been saddled with an extra burden as part of the land that was purchased for the well field is being used by the high school at the user's costs, not the entire town cost. Only the water users are bearing this cost, and it's not fair as it's a municipal building and everyone gets to use it, but only the water users are paying the extra cost of that property. Sewer hookup fees are there to help sustain improvements to the existing infrastructure and future improvements. Ben Sherman has told me that there is a specific piece of machinery that will be required to maintain the new high school. I don't think he's spoken about that yet. I don't think that the sewer users are going to be burdened with the cost of this, as it's a school maintenance issue. And I would ask you to ask Ben to elaborate on this added cost for this new piece of vacuum machinery. To avoid the sewer water connection fees places added costs upon the water users and sewer users of the town. You must think of the water and sewer as a private enterprise that must collect its rightful fees in order to operate. To avoid the collection of the fees places an added cost and tax, if you will, only to the water and sewer users. The costs are not shared equally by all the residents for the common good. Thus, you're only charging a portion of the town for a building being used by the entire town.
Thank you. Anybody else here before we, let me just see if there's anybody, has everyone spoke now from the floor? Ben, you've been up a couple times.
Yeah, I just, point of clarification. There is also a misunderstanding about specialized equipment. Specialized equipment is outside of the water and sewer discussion.
Right.
I just wanted to
I was
bring
gonna
that
bring
out there,
that,
point of clarification for the public.
Right, thank you.
question is, how's it going to be funded?
It's the next public hearing.
Next, that's not what discussion is.
There's another tax override like that.
All right, Mark, that's enough. All right, Tim, you had something?
Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion to, no. Do whatever,
Yeah,
want to continue to the next meeting?
my opinion, I think we could close it, but there's a motion,
Close what, public hearing?
public hearing.
Absolutely, you can.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Right, for a second.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we're gonna look for a motion to carry this to,
We just put it on our next.
You don't need a motion for that.
okay. Our next meeting,
June 11th?
June 11th?
June 11th.
I will not be here.
Well, we're sitting here on meetings. On June 13th, there's a Board of Selectmen School Building Committee meeting, 6 PM at the high school.
I will be here on the 13th, if that matters.
Okay, I'll look at that. We only got 2 weeks here.
Well, my preference would be, because we're here tonight, and it's,
I'd like to have everybody that was here
Right.
tonight be here, so that may get changed to the 13th. I'll let everyone know. If we change it to the 13th instead of the 11th for our meeting.
Okay. Where is it? At the school?
At the school library.
high school house.
No, but I mean our next meeting, because Jay's not gonna be here, we've all been here for this, I'd like to have everybody back here, so we may change that to the 13th.
And just conduct one meeting. Yes, the
Right,
meeting on the 11th.
yes.
The 11th
I'm
is
gonna
your
have two
normal
meetings.
scheduled meeting.
What's that?
The 11th is a normal scheduled meeting.
Right, but we can change it to the 13th.
Yeah, you could, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Rather than have
Be
two
together
meetings.
I'm not sure
anyway.
what you.
Well, tomorrow I'll have a date. Make sure everyone can. Okay. Old business.
I move that the board approve the 5/14/2012 meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. You two need to abstain.
Two abstains?
I almost, what's that? The meeting that they're voting on?
5/14 was, you guys weren't on the board
You
yet.
guys weren't on the board yet, so then we'll go to the,
Temporary insanity.
yeah. 5:23 minutes.
Make a motion that move that the board approve 5/23/12 meeting minutes.
Second.
This is made in second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Abstain.
And abstain.
You were there for that one.
Oh, wait a minute,
That was
29th,
that-
okay, I'm sorry.
The 23rd. Yeah.
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah, that was, we all,
Yeah.
Reorg. But they will.
okay. Let's see, old business, Bruce, you have?
I have a quick update on the school. This morning at 9 o'clock, the MSBA Executive Director, Jack McCarthy, and members of the MSBA took a tour of the new high school, along with myself, Selectman Tim Rice, and Tracy Ante. And Jack McCarthy was he thought the site, everything was going very well. He was very satisfied with the site safety and everything else with it. We also mentioned, Senator Moore was there, Representative Kiros, and they also mentioned about trying to get a little extra money for the project. And Jack said he'll take that back to the board, which we appreciated. And just for your information, the new gym floor is in. It's being dried out now. And Part B of the high school is kind of closed off now. All the floors are shined, everything's done, except putting up the lockers. So they had the doors, well, we did go in, but the doors were closed, just so they can try to keep it clean. They're still working on Part A. The auditorium is being worked on. All the holes have been drilled in the floors for all the seats. All the seats are there, just a matter of time before they put them in. It's pretty impressive, and I'm sure when you go to visit it the next time, you'll be also impressed. And I hope before we have the grand opening, there is another day where the public can go out and look at it, because it really is really looking good. It's really coming, it's something to be proud of. And that's about it, basically.
All right, thank you. Okay, member issues.
I have a couple, I don't know if I would call them issues, but just topics. On our schedule, we have the 13th, or the 11th, 13th, and then the following, next board meeting after that is 2 weeks from the 13th,
Yeah,
so the 27th.
yes.
So on the 27th,
2 weeks from the 11th.
The 11th and after, yeah.
oh, sorry, it's from the 11th, so that would be the
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
So on the 25th, on the agenda, with the board's permission, I'd like to kind of bring forth the final product for the Goaling and Ad hoc Committee. If we can reserve 15 minutes on the agenda for that, that would be helpful. And a couple other things. We need, as kind of cleanup from last season, need to vote on the town manager's pay increase before this fiscal year. I don't know if we want to put that on our agenda.
Maybe we should close that out.
We should close that out as well. And then one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about was, last year, we never formally got together and said, hey, here's what we're gonna do as a board, for goals, directives, projects, call them whatever you will. And as I think, Peter, you've called out a couple times, it's been a very administrative role of this board, role that this board has taken historically, or at least in the last couple of years I've been on it. So I'd like to kind of talk about, how do we collectively get some projects, goals, things on the table that we as a group of 5 can decide would be important for us to accomplish within this next several months or within a year, whatever the timeline may dictate, and kind of take ownership to that. And one of the things that we've been talking about is, bylaws that keep coming up. There was a proposal to the board for what's gonna happen when this high school project's done, and who's gonna kind of take over the next phase of getting their hands on where these fields are gonna be, because officially the school building committee is gonna be done at the end of the June project. And how is that gonna be managed moving forward? As an example, there's things relative to, we talked about the sewer tonight, a lot of the sewer issues. So I think what I would like to see us do at the next meeting is kind of, each of us come with what are our 3 things that, however the number works out, that we want to kind of propose to the board to kind of lead on our own, and see if the board can help prioritize one another's efforts, and then we can take some action and really change the format of the meeting on a regular basis, so we know we're working on things that we think are important, and we understand how we're progressing towards achieving them on a regular meeting schedule. So, I'll leave it for discussion, but, that's, what hasn't been working is kind of this waiting for someone to come in and tell us what direction to go. So I'm just throwing something out there to try to shake it up. If you have other ideas, please,
No, I mean, that's some good, there's things out there. Myself, I've just personally just kind of been watching that building over here. I get someone to come in with John and David. That's gonna come down. They're coming in Monday to abatement on this asbestos and the lead in the glazing before they knock it down. And the money is there for a grant. We have till June 13th. I'd like to make sure that follows and we get
I
that done.
thought David told me that grant had disappeared.
Well, there's a $175,000 grant for the front of Town Hall and the building being knocked down, making a parking lot.
Tell them not to get the buildings mixed up.
Well, this building could use something. And I think, Peter,
Surgery
you always
with the
bringing up
X.
the bylaws, maybe, myself, on some of the bylaw things, I think it's more definition type stuff, that you go to the bylaw and you look at something, and you have to go to the back to see what it's actually talking about, small things. But it's some of the general bylaws that I think have to be worked on.
General bylaws as opposed to
Well,
zoning bylaws?
No, I mean, including some of, not general bylaws, like the water and sewer permitting stuff that we talked about today that's we have to fix, I think. I'll look at it and see. But the zoning bylaws, I know you have some issues that, idea I had, it's, if you came in with a couple that we could discuss, instead of going, I don't think we have to go through the whole bylaw. That's my opinion. I think if you were to come in, and again, not speaking for you, but some things that you mentioned, so we could discuss it and maybe change it. That's the type of stuff I would kinda like to, and in your opinion, you can, whether you wanna do that or not, I'm not sure. If you wanna go right through the whole thing, I mean, it's something, if there's some problems there, which there's a few, we should fix them.
Well, I would start with the statement that Kerry said, which was, we can't go back to what we had.
Right.
And I would like to know why we can't go back to what we had. Because, as you know, what we had was approved by the Attorney General.
Right.
So if somebody says we can't go back to what we had, I want to know why. Because that's a lot easier than trying to fix what we have now.
In your opinion?
Everything, I don't think I give Jay's opinion or Tim's
No, I know. I'm just,
or Toulouse-Lautrec's opinion. When I speak, I'm giving my opinion and
understand
only
that.
my opinion.
yeah. Anybody have anything else?
Well,
on
what's,
this?
yeah,
Well, go ahead. No, I
maybe we
wanna-
can save it for, are we having the discussion that we're gonna have at the next meeting now?
Well, I just thought if Bruce or Tim had any ideas before, I mean, we could
Are you
bring,
talking just zoning board, or are you talking,
no, I'm just talking things that, like he said, we're gonna have a discussion on this anyways, but I just thought there was something on the top of your head right now, that's all. I mean, we're gonna discuss it the next agenda, but if you have nothing now, we'll wait till the next agenda.
As long as everyone kind of understands.
If you wanna
agrees
do
that
something.
That's something that we should actively pursue.
The problem I have seen over the years is that something comes up and it's left hanging.
Right.
And it stays hanging, it's never resolved.
Mm-hmm.
So year after year, it comes up and it's never resolved. And there are a lot of those. I'll just point to one. With the gravel fees, remember? I sent you that memo and the tape and so forth. And Bruce, you said that you agree the board made a mistake and you wanted, or we should fix it. But
That's something
it's
we can
gone
look
now,
into.
you know, huh?
It's not gone. If you don't feel it's right, we can fix it.
I thought you agreed that it wasn't right.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
If it's
okay.
wrong,
I know,
we'll fix it.
but it has to be on the agenda.
Correct.
And we have to
That's-
fix it, but it doesn't happen, you see.
Well, this is the thing that I think this board has to change, which is we need to, 5 of us agree what the agenda is, not have the chairman or the vice chairman come back and not get our input in. You know,
Right.
so at the end of each meeting, I think a dialogue like this that says, all right, let's make sure we get the gravel fees on there. Let's make sure we address Sean's, contract, pay increase and get that voted in, and just make sure that we're reminding each other and not assume that it's gonna get done, because I think a lot of times in the past, we've assumed that it was gonna get taken care of and other things become priorities and it gets bumped off and we lose track, so.
yeah, how does a member get something on the agenda? Do we go through you?
Yeah.
How-
Anybody else? Any issues? All right, town manager?
Welcome, gentlemen. Sorry I wasn't here last week. I was in Boston most of last week. I completed my procurement training, so I'm a certified procurement, public procurement official now, which is something that's, as the charter names me the chief procurement officer of the town, this was training that I needed to finish. So the good news is I got it done in less than a year, so. This morning, most of today, I was at Division of Local Services, Department of Revenue seminar it's called New Officials Finance Forum. I'm still sort of new, even though it's been nine months. It turned out to be really good training. It's going to allow me to be a lot more assistive or proactive, or take a more primary role in setting of the budget next year. As we all know, this is my first budget go around this spring. So the learning curve was pretty steep, and I did as much as I could. But the combination of the experience of this year and this training that I got today and some ongoing training, I think bodes well for future budgets, or at least for next year. What else? We're getting closer and closer to the launching of the new town website. The virtual town hall folks are coming in next Monday and Wednesday to give training to everyone who's going to have access to updating the website, so I'm anticipating, within a week or two after that, we'll actually launch the new site.
Question on that, Sean, if I can.
Yes, sir.
Are the sites for the different boards and committees and so forth, will they have a common structure? So that when you go from one to another, you'll know where to look for certain things?
Unless, for the most part, yes.
Okay.
There are certain, like the library has its own website. I think the historical, there are a couple of commissions that will be direct, there will be a couple of town agencies
Okay.
that may already have their own external website. At that point, you would be directed to that particular site, but for the most part, it's gonna be a common template,
Okay, that's good.
which is why everyone's being trained, so it's pretty much.
How does it work with our different commissions and group? Are the chair for those commission groups being trained, or do they have a responsible party in town hall that they work through?
I'm gonna have a couple of them come in. I'm starting with most of the department heads. And once I and Tracy and Justin especially, I think, get trained, I'll be able to conduct train the trainer. I'll be able to conduct subsequent training.
Now, each department will be able to access, put in their own
In real
information.
time, absolutely. There'll be no more, we shouldn't have any more issues with, non-current, whatever, it's meeting dates or commission members or any of that kind of stuff. Everything will be able to be updated, and it won't cost additional money, which will be nice. What else? Next Tuesday, I have my next monthly department head meeting. We'll be going over the review process, and so I'm happy to say that I don't have an exact percentage, but I'd have to guess it's about 97% of all municipal employees have undergone some sort of performance evaluation or review. I have about 3 people that I have to take care of, and I think it's sort of the first time that's probably happened in a long time. This is in furtherance of implementation of the personnel system, again, which is a mandate of the charter, so I'm sort of in the process of trying to create a personnel system and take care of some of the elements of the personnel system at the same time. What else? I appreciate you listening to Vera tonight. Obviously, we don't have a planner in town.
Thank God.
My position is that it's not my job to decide what measure or what type of development is appropriate for the town. That's gonna be either left to you or to town meeting members. So, Vera coming here and just sort of keeping you all appraised of what's going on is just furtherance of my efforts to try and make sure the town is on the right lists. We're talking to the right people so that we get ideas that I can then turn around and present to the town. All right, so I'm not necessarily I'm gonna leave it to you and to the townspeople to vet those ideas, whether they're things that we want to deal with.
What would you recommend would be our next action as a result of her coming tonight? Because I'm a little confused. It sounds like she's got this fast train, that's going down the track, and I'm a little unclear as to what the hard next step is for this town.
There isn't necessarily, it's mostly for me. One of the people that she wanted to talk to, that she's gonna talk to, is Russ Holden, because she had no information regarding
Conservation.
preservation sites. Because we don't have a planner, thank goodness, apparently, that piece of the puzzle is sort of being left to me, because our planning board doesn't really deal with development, it just deals with the projects that are in front of it. So we don't have that planner skill set here in town. So I need to use agencies like this, because I don't necessarily possess that skill set either. So, as CMRPC, it's about being on their list, it's about situating ourselves with them, so that we're part of a conversation, Jay. That's kind of what it boils down to. It's not gonna be a necessary, ultimately, it will decide the pecking order, right, of the projects that it decides, but the fact that we're showing an interest, right, whether unilaterally or working collaboratively with other towns or working with this agency shows to whoever's looking, right, that our hands are out or our minds are open or something, right, that this is information and assistance that we're interested in or potentially interested in.
So at some point, we'll align what they're doing with some potential goals that we may
Correct.
have.
She mentioned the four-town initiative, you know, I mean, one of the things that, Northbridge and Douglas are in potentially Sutton, and I'm not sure if, is getting, gas line along that sort of
46.
past Hartford Avenue. So, some of Uxbridge's property abuts where this potentially would be. I'm not sure if that's something we can, but I've been to quite a few meetings with the Chamber of Commerce. CMRPC's right down the street from where I live, so it's easy for me to just go across town in Worcester and talk to those people. So, you know, ultimately, I can't answer that, what's ultimately gonna be the concrete deliverable, to use one of your words, right, what this is gonna be, but, it's free at this point, right, so I think it's, you know. What else? I'm almost done here. Let's see. Veterans agent, most of you know that our veterans agent is retiring. Ted Kozak and Northbridge sort of have the lead on this because technically the veterans agent is an employee of the town of Northbridge. The other three towns, Sutton, Douglas, and Uxbridge, contribute. But I will be part of the interviewing process for this person, so we got a bunch of resumes, so hopefully within the next few weeks, Ted and I will narrow it down and start conducting interviews for that. And finally, more of a personal note, members of the previous board had endorsed a plan for me to potentially attend the UMass Boston, the Masters in Public Administration program. A couple of the board wrote a letter endorsing me. I was accepted into the program itself last week, so I've scheduled an interview on Tuesday afternoon for the scholarship, right? So apparently there was modest, I'm guessing there's 5 or 6 people who actually applied for the scholarship, so hopefully I'll know within another week or two whether that's actually gonna happen, so. It still may not happen, but halfway there, whatever. My academic credentials are there now. Hopefully the personal interview will seal the deal, so,
Congratulations.
thanks.
Can I, a couple follow-ups?
Laminate.
I didn't really want them. RFI for Blanchard, where do we sit on that regarding the housing project that,
The RFP,
yes.
I'll be meeting with the next UHA, Uxbridge Housing Associates meeting is June 13th. I'll be attending that, and I'll be working, we're trying to get with, meet with John Jewell, UHA's attorney, and we're just to sort of get some input, more solid input, legalese input on the project, which most of you saw. And we're gonna, and probably David Jenner and I will come up with an RFP.
So
We'd like to do it by the end of June.
right, we made that commitment to,
Right.
Harry and his team, yeah, so I just wanna make sure we're following up. And then regarding, the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, you acknowledged that the police chief is moving on, so kind of where are we in that?
Correct. I don't have a hard date on that yet. I was out of the office last week. I haven't heard from him. He's telling me late July, early August. He's got a lot of vacation time and all. As far as a succession plan goes, I think some discussion sort of needs to be had about that. I think that it's worth discussing or considering whether we want to maintain a civil service police chief, or whether we want to go to get away from that and go to a more competitive.
I have forgotten what,
Posting.
the mechanism by doing that. Do you know what it is?
I'm in the process of,
Okay,
I know Millbury just recently
yeah.
went away from civil service. I had a quick conversation with Bob Spain, the town administrator in Millbury. So my combined efforts of my own research and talking with him, I'm gonna sort of see what that sort of minefield is entailed. I know a chief's exam was given in May. For the civil service, I expect there's 2 or 3 names on it. I just think it gives us potentially more flexibility really to narrow down to really get the candidate that we want, rather than sort of to be at the mercy of, and again, not to disparage those police officers who have taken this exam. I just think we can certainly increase our applicant pool if we go away from that. It may not be the right idea, it's just I'm entertaining it. And I think that's,
I think that's a good idea. To look at all our options. And assume that no one's gonna walk into it.
that's my plan.
Good.
And I guess that's it. I'll be out of the office Thursday and Friday. I'm at a municipal managers conference
You
in
better wait till you
Pittsfield.
get your pay raise. You better wait till you get your pay raise before you take all these days off.
I'm working. I'll be working Thursday and I'll be working Friday as well. Friday as well, I'll be after the meeting in Pittsfield. I'll be driving here to Uxbridge to go to the Rally for the Valley. It's a Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce effort at Riverbend Farm. Senator Moore and a couple of the representatives are gonna be speaking there. It's more of the National Corridor, National Park effort. So,
You have to
rest
use
assured,
the
I will
proper
be,
name.
I'll be on the clock, Mr.
Okay.
Rice. I'm sorry?
You have to use the proper name, the Chafee, National, what's his name?
Yeah,
Chafee, it's this long, but you have to use the whole thing, otherwise they send hitmen after you.
I'll learn that.
The issue of the 100-acre lot in the solar farm, as you know, to do anything with that, under the current rules, we'd have to replicate that farmland,
Mhm.
which makes absolutely no sense at all, because it only applies to municipalities. And from the standpoint of preserving farmland, which is something I'm in favor of, how do you reconcile the public interest in preserving farmland with zoning bylaws that force people to build when they build a single-family house in a agricultural zone, we force them to consume 300 feet of frontage and 2 acres of land, whether they want to or not. I mean, the two don't make any sense whatever. Because when you have a house here and a house here and a house here, you've basically withdrawn all that land from future agricultural use. At the same time, we're told we have to replicate it if we want to do the same thing there.
You know, sometimes you buy a house in an agricultural zone so that you can have 3 horses, 4 cows, and 25
Yeah,
chickens.
that's fine, but not everybody wants that.
I know,
Yeah.
but when you only have 125-foot frontage, it
Yeah.
gets kind of crowded, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not
I mean,
suggesting.
not being a farmer,
I'm not
asking
suggesting
you.
125-foot frontage, but certainly 300 feet is to force people to use that much land, irrespective of whether they want a chicken or a house, something.
Or
should be
maybe a
an
couple of
individual
roosters
decision.
next door.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, the fewer restrictions that are placed on that property, the more marketable it is. And that's why when we talked about the school, they talk about, well, you have to do this, preserve it. We say, no. If you buy it, it's yours, you can do whatever you want with it. We're out of it. Because the more restrictions you put on it, the lower the value becomes and the less useful it is for people to be interested in.
Motion to adjourn?
Just on the town manager stuff, I think it was a good update, Sean, tonight, really good, so thanks for that. If we can, on the future ones too, I think we should all try to get into the habit, if we can get these project-oriented things going, including you on it. I didn't mean to exclude you earlier, because I know you've got some important stuff, like, it was good to hear about the website project and where we're gonna be with that, so I'd welcome you to participate in kind of the project update, and let us know, what are gonna be the things coming up down the pike, so we can understand what's coming, and a lot of times we get asked what you're working on for certain things, so it's just helpful. That was it, though.
Motion to adjourn.
Right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.